Amazon has everything for back to school. Zebra lunchbox? Check. Cool Adidas gear like t-shirts, shoes, and backpacks? Check. Triceratops folders and pencils? Check. Laser Cat t-shirts? Check. Get your back to school shopping done now at Amazon.com/back-to-school and enjoy free shipping on millions of items. No need to leave your home or hassle with crowds. Amazon.com. No better place to get everything back to school from A to Z.
Blog Talk Radio. Good morning and welcome to Unlimited Realities. I'm your host, Lisa Zimmer, and today I'm very excited to bring our guest with you today to listen to. She's expert nutritionist, herbalist Terry Cochran, who wrote Restorative Recipes, A Mindful Path to the Essential You. And Terry has written this incredible, it's a recipe card cookbook as well as a book that goes along with it. Not only does it give you healthy, happy food to prepare and eat for yourself, but she also gives the reasons why certain foods will help certain ailments that you're struggling with, whether it's high cholesterol, high blood pressure, heart disease. All of these things are affected by what you put in your body. And Terry's here to really educate us. She's an expert in the field. She's done amazing things with hundreds of people all over Metro Washington, D.C., and she's the founder of Healing Paths, which is an integrative nutrition and wellness counseling practice. She is an incredible woman and nutritionist and has done miracles. Terry, welcome to Unlimited Realities. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Good morning, Lisa. Thank you so much for having me.
Well, this is a wonderful book. I have used your recipes. The kids even like them, and they're pretty adventurous eaters, but these are a lot of greens, a lot of whole, fresh foods, which is what we all need to get used to appreciating more of. And what I really loved, and what I find that's brilliant, and when I feel brilliance from someone, it's when they take something that's so overwhelmingly confusing to the average person and simplify it in such a way that you can't not get it. So your brilliance is incredible. I love the fact of how you've created this in such a visual, beautiful, easy to read, and an engaging way. So let's get right into it. Let's talk a little bit about first you as the founder of Healing Paths. How did you create this, and what was the need that you felt you were being drawn to in creating your foundation?
Well, I came to this vocation as a result of a personal need. My son, when he was young, was very sick, and by the age of 3, I was told that he would not be normal, that he would have brain seizures, he would not reach a normal height, that he would be really impaired for his life. We were always in the hospital, and I could see my son, instead of improving, he was withering away. And so I had a corporate career. I ran a business unit for a Fortune 50 company, and I was my background was in institutional finance, strategic planning, and corporate real estate. So it's quite different what I was doing then to what I'm doing now, but by the age of 5, I decided that my son was not going to live this way, and I had to be the catalyst for change in his life. So I became this voracious researcher of anything and everything that might help find a way to his healing. And this was before the age of the Internet, so I was interviewing people. I would be living at the library, anybody or anything that could give me information. That's the way that I was trying to find a way for him. And after much research, what I found was that it was what we were putting in his body that was actually suppressing his immune system, that was suppressing his endocrine system, and not only the food, but also the drugs. And what we found was within 4 days of eliminating wheat and dairy and citrus and peanuts, his symptoms were 80% better. And it took us, this was not an overnight success. It took us a few years for him to really rebuild his system. And not only did we change what he ate, but we started supporting his immune system with adaptive and adaptogen-type herbs like astragalus. We supported his digestive tract with plant enzymes. We supported his thyroid with greens, especially kelp, which is so important because it has a good source of iodine. So by supporting his body, both through supplements and through food, he is now completely free of all of his drugs. He's a junior Olympic champion in karate. He's a scholar athlete. He's getting ready to graduate. He's a senior this year, and achieving at the very highest level. So very proud of him, and that was what actually, that was my path to what I'm doing now, because when I was going through this, there was no one like me guiding me, and I felt really lost. And so when we went through this journey, I really found that this is really my calling, that I needed to change what I was doing and start a practice that helped individuals like me find their way to health. And I have a practice that is a pediatric practice and a geriatric practice. My youngest client is 7 weeks old. My oldest client is almost 100. So I see the spectrum of individuals from pediatric to geriatric, and with all sorts of conditions, whether it be food allergies, GI issues, the big diseases like you mentioned, heart disease, high blood pressure, high cholesterol, a lot of menopausal symptoms, endocrine imbalance is really big, ADHD, all the neurological diseases I see from migraines to from migraines to the ones that are like Lyme's-based MS, Wilson's disease, those that all have neurological components, including OCD and depression and anxiety.
See, I find a show like this fascinating because this is something that really speaks to me in regard to where we're all needing to become a little bit more we're needing to become a lot more proactive in regard to taking responsibility for longevity and health and not being reliant upon what's being pumped out there and prescribed and put upon us, whether it's our food or our medicines. And so to have something that's actually God-given, nature provided, that's healthy, and we can actually have a benefit within our physical form from it. The pieces that I'm seeing right now is there seems to be such an increase of gluten intolerance. In fact, my daughter was just diagnosed with this, and it's unbelievable to me. I never would have heard of this 10 years ago, gluten intolerance.
And
I know it
there's a real
existed.
phenomenon going on related to gluten intolerance, and actually Mark Heinemann, who's a phenomenal doctor here in the D.C. area and works with the Institute of Functional Medicine, wrote a tremendous piece on it just recently, stating that we have developed super grains that have super gluten. So the gluten in the United States today contains 4 times the level of gluten as does the gluten in Europe. So
that makes sense.
Grains where people are less and less tolerant, and the Centers for Celiac Disease are actually stating now that 1 in 7 has a gluten intolerance. That doesn't mean that you're celiac or you've developed the antibodies to gluten, but you have an intolerance, and gluten can really mask itself in a whole variety of different conditions, from neurological to GI is obviously the most obvious if you intake gluten and you have a GI issue that is very, very evident, but joint pain, all growing conditions, and now they're saying that 80% of individuals with an autoimmune condition will have a gluten sensitivity. So gluten is huge. And in my cookbook, all of the recipes are either gluten-free or gluten-free adaptable because I was recognizing the need to substitute grains away from the wheat, the rye, the oat, and the spelling.
Right. You use a lot of the brown rice pasta, and that's something that is low. Is that low or gluten-free?
That is completely gluten-free. Okay. And the reason why I love the brown rice pasta, one is I prefer it actually. Our family doesn't have a specific gluten sensitivity, but I actually prefer it in taste to whole wheat. I don't love the whole wheat pasta, but the brown rice pasta is very taste-friendly. And as I mentioned, I have a teenage son, have actually 2 teenage children, and I have friends that their friends always come over, and I serve them this gluten-free brown rice pasta, and they love it. They have no idea that they're eating anything different. And the
I have to agree with that.
It is really quite good. There's a trick to cooking it. You can't overcook it, and you have to put I put olive oil in the water, and I separate the strands while I am cooking it, and I cook it just to the al dente point, and then I immediately rinse it with warm water. Because if you overcook it, it can be a just lumpy mess. But if you know how to cook it, it's very, very tasty, and it really reheats nicely. And the thing I love about brown rice is that it has something called gamma-oryzole, and that is really important in helping lower cholesterol and manage blood sugar levels. So you're getting really a triple benefit from substances made with brown rice, whether it's the pasta or it's the whole grain.
And that's a good lead into, let's talk about cholesterol. We want to hit some of the most obvious health areas that we're plagued with in America, and cholesterol being right up there. And even younger and younger people are having high cholesterol, which is, it's really ridiculous when we look at, where we're going in our health as a country. So what are some of the foods that you recommend, or even herbs that people can utilize and cook with or take that could, show some improvement in their reads?
Well, what I really love is the beans are amazing. So the beans and the whole grains and the right types of protein. And it is a very scary statistic that 1 in 5 of us have cholesterol over 240. And actually they're seeing that cholesterol is not only an adult disease or condition. It really is hitting our teens. And I went to see Michael Pollan last night. And Michael, for those of you that don't know Michael Pollan, he's a tremendous journalist and author. He's a university professor at Cal Berkeley. And he wrote The Omnivore's Dilemma and In Defense of Food. And last night he was talking about, we all know about the French paradox, but last night he was actually talking about the American paradox, that here we are, an affluent country, an educated country, and yet we're a country of what is becoming a nation of obese individuals. And you can't separate one from the other. High cholesterol goes with high blood sugar, goes with high blood pressure. It's that little tripod of symptoms, and it's really rooted in, there was a name given to these cluster of symptoms called metabolic syndrome X, and this was coined in Stanford in the 1980s, and the root of all of these issues was insulin resistance, meaning that we are not metabolizing the sugars we take in. And that really impacts cholesterol, because at the root of all of this is inflammation. And so we are a nation of individuals walking around in an inflammatory state. And whether it's cholesterol, blood sugar, blood pressure, hardening of the arteries, it's all rooted in that inflammation, and that's what they're saying now. It's all about the inflammation. So how do we get rid of the inflammation to manage the cholesterol, manage the high blood pressure, manage these other big diseases that is costing our healthcare system billions of dollars annually? First of all, what I say is you don't have to become one of these statistics. Secondly, you don't have to give up great-tasting food to become healthy. Right. The way to do it is just to become informed and understand what your body needs, and everyone is different. So I don't prescribe any diet per se. When I work with my clients, it's understanding how their body works and then designing a program that meets their needs that is individual to them. Now, having said that, a broad spectrum, taking a broad brush, what we need to ultimately do is alkalize and oxygenate, because those are the enemies of acidity and inflammation. And those two things, acidity and inflammation, is what causes disease. And how do we alkalize and oxygenate? Well, the first thing is we've got to take in those greens. And you mentioned that my book has a lot of greens. I've got a whole chapter on what I call jummy juices, which are building your own juice, taking in juices, whether in through juicing specifically, or through smoothies, or through soups, or through mains, or through sides. So we've got to up our greens, and greens can be quite delicious. The reason why greens are so important is that greens are liver purifiers, and cholesterol